magnetars. They're very high magnetic field magnetars, and the magnetars also produce explosions, which again we don't understand. This is a big subject by itself. Now, I told you the size of the white dwarf is size of the Earth, which is about 10,000 kilometers, 6 to 10,000 kilometers. What is the size of a neutron star? It is much, much smaller. It is only about 10 kilometers. It is something in Delhi from Lal Killa to Qutub Minar. So that you can fit the whole pulsar in this area, in this region, and it has mass of the sun. So you can see it is very much more dense than the white dwarf. We said white dwarf was very dense. Neutron star is even more dense. Of course, it has got neutrons at the center, but in the periphery, it again neutron breaks up into protons and electrons and antineutrinos. So in the periphery, it is made up of protons and electrons. The degenerate neutrons inside, due to their Pauli principle pressure or electron degeneracy or neutron degeneracy pressure, is what provides the balance for gravity. And neutron star is balanced by degeneracy pressure of the neutrons and the gravitation. As I mentioned earlier, the period can vary from milliseconds to a few seconds. Now, very interestingly, on the surface of a pulsar, the strong magnetic field is even more important than gravity. Even though the gravity is very large, but the magnetic field can have an extraordinary effect on the behavior of matter on the surface of a pulsar. Next slide. Okay, it's probably time to point out that radio astronomy was extremely important for the discovery of pulsars. After the Second World War, around 1950, radio astronomy began and started bringing us much, much more information. One of the first persons involved in radio astronomical studies was M.K. Dasgupta from Calcutta, who worked with Jennison, and Jennison and Dasgupta were the first people to get the radio signals and make sure that this branch of astronomy, which is now extremely important, was completely opened up. Now, an interesting point is, even though the radio signals from the pulsar were what identified the pulsar, the energy emitted by the pulsar is not really in the radio region. Large amount of energy is really in X-ray and gamma rays, because a pulsar, like the Crab pulsar, which is present inside the Crab, is really emitting radiation from radio waves to gamma rays. And the energy of gamma rays and X-rays is much, much more than the radio emission. But it was the radio emission which really enabled us to identify the pulsar. So it is interesting how different parts of the spectrum, electromagnetic spectrum, enable us to complement each other and discover things about various objects in the sky. We will see an example of it later on also. Now, you see, every telescope has something which is called a resolving power. If there are two objects and they are separated by a small amount, can the telescope see them as two objects, or it will merge into one? This is called resolving power. The resolving power depends on the size or the aperture of the telescope. Now, you cannot make the aperture of an optical telescope much larger very easily, though nowadays we are trying hard. But for a radio telescope, it is very much easy, because you can put two different receivers far away and you can coordinate the signals from both the receivers. And so you can connect the radio telescopes together and get a very high quality of resolving power. And this is extremely useful in radio telescopes. Now in India, we have a very important radio telescope in Pune, which is called GMRT, and it has already discovered many pulsars. Next slide. This is the GMRT, or the Giant Meter Radio Telescope in Pune, India. It consists of a dish like this, and the dish has been made with ropes and things in India by going through, whose picture we'll see in a moment. And it really consists of about 30 to 40 telescopes arranged in Y form. You can see the other telescopes here, in a place called Narayanganj near Pune, where there is also a wine factory. And you notice that the collection of all these dishes, when fed together into computer and processed, gives you a very high resolving power. And it works in the radio of meter wavelength. And it was put at meter wavelength because at meter wavelength, you can also study cosmological signals, which are of great importance. And it can also study pulsars, and it has already discovered pulsars, and many pulsars. And it is one of the world-class telescopes that we have in India now. This is the second telescope set up by Tata Institute in India. The first one was in Ooty, which also was an extremely good one. This is the second one, which was set up in Pune in India. Next slide, please. This is Professor Govind Swarup, who is responsible really for both the telescopes, radio telescopes set up in India. He is luckily with us even now, and he was at Stanford doing engineering degree. Homi Bhabha got him from there, and he, along with 4 or 5 others, got into this process. And first they designed a telescope in Ooty, and then they designed the GMRT telescope, and both are world-class radio telescopes. Interestingly, you can ask, why was it set up in India and not anywhere else? Govind Swarup told me that they set it up in India because there were no mobile telephones in India at that time. And people thought that it will be a long time before we get telephones. So the mobile telephones that you have interfere with radio waves in the radio telescope. So he thought we would have interference. But unfortunately, a mobile telephone is expanded so fast in India that we have a whole lot of mobile telephones, probably more than anywhere else in India. But still, the telescope is working very well. Next slide, please. This is X-ray telescope. Now, to study X-rays and gamma rays, you have to go outside the atmosphere of the Earth, because atmosphere of the Earth absorbs these X-rays and gamma rays. So this is a telescope which was made after Chandrasekhar. It is called Chandra X-ray orbiting telescope. It orbits the Earth and observes X-rays. Of course, this telescope is being superseded by another X-ray telescope, which is even more powerful now. But this also gave us a lot of information about various X-ray emissions of observations. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the photograph taken by the Chandra X-ray telescope, and it is a photograph of the Crab Nebula. Now, I told you about the Taurus constellation. In the Taurus constellation, there was a nebular object which looked like a crab to people, so it was called the Crab Nebula. Now, the Crab Nebula, we believed, and we correctly believed, is really the remaining part of a supernova which exploded. And interestingly, this supernova which exploded in 1054 or so was observed by Chinese astronomers, and there are detailed records of how a star could be seen in the sky even during daytime, because the supernova is so powerful, even sunlight is not able to stop it. You can see it with naked eye in the sky in 1054. So this was the supernova, which is now the remnant of the supernova is expanding. Now we know that right at the center is a pulsar or a neutron star, which is now called the Crab pulsar. And this Crab pulsar has been now studied widely, and this photograph is taken in the X-ray. So it shows the X-ray emission of the Crab pulsar. Next slide, please.